in the biz, you get to meet all the top people. This is a game I've wanted to cover on ChinnyVision for a long time. Rockstar Ate My Hamster. Now, I'm going to say this because a lot of people watch ChinnyVision with their kids. Rockstar Ate My Hamster was sold to kids back in the day. I was about 9 years old and was sold a copy, as was my mate, because it was different times. You have to make a decision if you're watching this with your kids, if you want to continue viewing this. Just for the record, when we do publicity, the infamous shot in the headline screen, that's gone, okay? But because I do know people sit around and watch this, and I just want to make sure everyone's okay. Right, that's that out of the way. So no one's going to get upset, hopefully. Rockstar Ate My Hamster came out in 1988, the name of the game inspired by that famous Sun headline. Rockstar Ate My Hamster was coded by Colin Jones and was released on Spectrum, Commodore 64, CPC, ST and Amiga, and we're looking at all those versions apart from the Amiga. Speaking of controversy, apparently W.H. Smith's pulled the full price version of this game from the shelves, not because of any of the other content, but because of some of the jokes that were included in a spoof newspaper inside the box. This was actually one of those Codemasters mid-price games, was it? I think $4.99, $5.99, something like that, quickly shoved out onto standard $2.99 budget. Starting off on the Spectrum version, and you get the loading screen here with the Rockstar flicking your finger. Different loading screens on different versions. And music on this version is by Tower Computer Games, which was Adam Waring of Amstrad Action and his mate, based up in Hull. Anyway, one day at the office of Cecil Pitt Theatrical Agency. We're finished, Clive. Now even Engelbert the Talking Hamster has left us. I'm getting out of this theatre business forever. Rock music, that's where the money is. Yeah, we'll start a rock management company with £50,000. So right, we're going to go off to the screening room and pick our rock stars. And generally speaking, wisdom always said you pick 4 rock stars. And they're all parodies of real life pop stars. So over to the CPC. So there's Lemmy, also called Lummy in there, Scratch and Sniffer, Salt and Pepper, Sydney Sparkle, you know who, Mince, Prince, and so on. C64, and the graphics are on the 8-bits are all the same. They've all been done, just ported over between the machines. Now, Sydney Sparkle, in real life, disgraced today, but always worth a punt in the game. He's only £50 a week. You've got £50,000, remember, and although money is easy to come by in later stages of the game, it isn't at the start, so you've got to pick your pop stars very carefully. On the tape versions, the machine has to load each pop star from the tape, which means selection takes a little bit of time. And on the Spectrum and Amstrad, you have to pause the tape between the people if you don't have a remote socket, which you won't on the Spectrum and you may not on the CPC. Now, Clive is your assistant and he will suggest things to you. You can always pick your own name. So here we go. We're going to pick a name here. And this is the ST version. I'm going to flip between the versions. Chinny and the Chins. I think that's an appropriate name. We've got Kate Bush, Rick Ghastly, and Kylie Minogue, look at like, who has a name I can't remember, and someone else I can't see. Layout on the ST version and the Amiga version as well, which you're not showing. You can't always see the pop stars very well below there. So you start off and you start touring in clubs. You always charge £10, no matter what venue you're playing. Always charge £10. So it's Dorothy, right? So it's Bimbo Baggins, Dorothy, Rick Ghastly, and Kate Bush. 4 mid-range pop stars there. So what you got to do here, we're touring. So we'll find out what the ticket sales are. We sold 500 tickets at £10. The initial thing in the game is you always start off in clubs and it will always dip down. The aim game is to get 4 gold discs. Was it platinum? And in order to get those discs, you need to have enough money to be able to record and make videos. So you see it's dropping down already, and your sales are tracked at the bottom right hand side of the screen. Practice is worth doing because although the magazines at the time said it made no difference, actually I am now told that it does make a difference, although that may be wrong as well. But it's always worth practicing occasionally in order to make sure you're performing well, especially if you're going to be recording as well. And live on stage, Chinny and the Chins. And yes, this bit is repetitive and boring, and it goes over and over and over. Over to the C64. Occasionally when touring, one of your pop stars may demand a stupid thing like an inflatable hamster for 60 grand or something like that if you haven't bought them enough gifts. You'll get offers at certain points to sign to certain labels. And the offers will increase and increase and increase until they get to 20%, at which point you'll get no more offers. The fact is, the royalty rate does not make a difference because it's about sales, not about how much royalties you raise. So I always tend to take the 5% option. I'll get you a little bit of money from it, but you start recording earlier, because otherwise you could be waiting till about April, May before you get recording if you get the best royalty rate. So we've now moved on to universities. A nice splash of colour here on the C64. On the faces, Cecil Pitt is a suitably orange colour. Over on the CPC, so Rough Records want to sign the Chinrhythmics. And so there we go. But we've only got 32 grand in the bank at the moment, so we don't want to record yet because we want the best recording facilities possible. So now it's all about making as much money as we can before we go into the recording studio. Back to the Spectrum, and I'm using a cheat, so I've got 49 million quid in the bank. Because some of these versions I'm playing properly, some of them I'm not. So we can go and record, and we can get a 48 track studio for £50,000. Always go for that one. And Bananarama are going to lay down some super noises. And you couldn't possibly have Wacko Jacko, Reg Dwight, and Ringo Beat. What's Paul McCartney called in this game? Can't remember. Anyway, you couldn't possibly have that, but here on the C64 got a more realistic lineup. You can name the singles yourselves, or you can let Clive pick. And Wisdom, again, the magazine said let Clive pick some of them and type in some of your own, possibly using keywords that the game also uses. But then again, I've been experimenting and that doesn't seem to make any difference whatsoever. So basically do whatever you feel like. I've been playing this game since the late 80s. There is no rhyme nor reason to what it does sometimes. It's random. So I did a practice there because I didn't want to release my record on a Sunday because I'll have to sit through the charts and have no chance of getting into the charts. So right, we're going to release a single. So there we go, it's our first single, and we're going to select a good location and a good director, what we can afford. And again, you're supposed to select, apparently, according to the magazines and sections like Cheat Mode and Amstrad Action, the most sensible music video, apparently. So right now we just need to keep on touring to bring money in and ensure that we get a good amount of, not publicity, but touring seems to push up your chart position, so that's something you want to do. I have taken sponsorship as well, so Coca-Cola. Generally, you have to weigh up if it's worth the money, because at some point, the sponsorship will backfire. And some terrible headline will come out with something, the product that's sponsoring you will cause terrible harm to someone, and there'll be bad publicity in your photo. So you have to weigh up whether you want the money or you're just going to turn down sponsorship opportunities. But the good news, there we go, Lummy wants an inflatable hamster for 50 grand. And that's because I haven't been giving my pop stars enough gifts. The bigger gifts you give them, the less they hassle you. So you can buy them comics or you can buy them cars. So here we are, off onto the charts. And there's no point, there's no way I'm going to be in the charts this early. C64 version has nice music. Amstrad doesn't. Spectrum has the same as the Amstrad, but not quite as plinky plonk. And the ST has probably the best music of them. And all the band names are parodies of things that were in the charts at that time. So we moved on a few weeks, so now we're charting again. I should be in the charts by now. There we go. Big chin. We've got to get to number 4 with that single. We need to get to number 4 for 1 week. Little sound bites of music are quite nice, and me and my mate used to always sit through every tune, watching the chart play through on his black and white television. Because he had black and white television for his C64. He only ever got to see it in colour when he brought it to my house. So we can get a publicity to try and push ourselves up the charts. Now, publicity is risky. Let's see what's going to happen. Rockstar Attack, that's fine. That looks like a bad piece of publicity, but in fact it's good and will help you out. The worst thing that can happen is your Rockstar will be killed. Rockstar dies in air disaster, Rockstar... all sorts of things can happen to you. Or there's a middle option where nothing bad happens, but you get a really lame headline and it doesn't really impact you at all. So as soon as you've got a single in the charts, you need to release an album. So we're going to call it Songs from the Big Chin. But I'm not typing on a C64 keyboard, so the chances of me getting this right without spelling mistakes or missing characters are small. There we go. And you want to release an album as soon as you've got a single in the charts. If you are going up the charts or you're above a certain position, your album will rise. And you're going to the top 10. Albums always rise or fall 1 position at a time. So an album's are what get you gold discs / platinum disc, whatever the game gives you down the bottom left hand corner there. It's album sales, not single sales. The only time that changes is if you're at number 1 in the singles chart, and then your album will move more than 1 position at a time. But the aim of the game is to keep hit singles coming out. You can only have 1 hit single at a time, and that will keep the album sales high, and that's when you get the gold discs. You can't have one without the other. Singles without albums are no use at all. It's all about using singles to push up the albums. So now it becomes a grind of touring and getting singles into the charts. Singles rise. As soon as a single starts to fall, the album will generally lag behind by 1 week in what it does. But that, as soon as the albums start to fall and the singles start to fall, drop it and release something else. So how are we doing? Skipping through these to make them a little bit faster. Number 4. We're at number 4. Hey! Bad Vibes Chiefs, a rotten organisation in Kensington, is pirating our records. What do you want to do? The best option is always to buy them out, because you send the boys around and they get beaten up and it costs you money. Publicity. Rockstar attacked by music lovers. That's fine. That will help our chart position. Vicar marries werewolf, see page 9. Now, I was thinking, isn't it a shame that ChinnyVision doesn't know somebody who perhaps had a number 4 hit single, who did the whole Top of the Pops thing, and is still involved with the music industry today, and is still releasing stuff? Perhaps somebody who watches the channel, perhaps somebody who's also played Rockstar Ate My Hamster back in the day, who could give their opinion. Oh, hang on. Here's Ricardo Autobahn from the Cuban Boys.
I do remember playing this back in the 80s. I used to like these sort of gimmicky games, these ones, not necessarily the big name shoot 'em ups, but the ones that got sort of 40% in Crash, but were quite quirky and gimmicky and a little bit odd. And even though they were crap, you could sort of get entertainment value out of them, and you felt you were playing something a little bit different. And Rockstar Ate My Hamster was always one of those. It had a wacky title. You could change the names in it, and you know the graphics are quite nice, aren't they? There's sort of there's a nice bit of detail about them. Looking at it nowadays, as a bona fide 1 week at number 4 pop star, it's quite fun. It's nicely grotty. That's the thing I like about it. It doesn't gloss up the music industry at all. It's quite sort of grimy. Now, it's not as cynical as The Biz, which I also enjoyed, the Chris Civvy game from a few years earlier. The Biz always used to seem a bit more involving as well. I think I could remember you could play that for hours on end and not actually get anywhere. Whereas with Rockstar Ate My Hamster, you do end up with this rotation of sort of practice, publicity, gig, release, and then you're doing stuff by rote, neither winning nor losing, which seems to sum up the music industry quite well, really. Having said that, and this is not meant to be facetious or cynical anywhere, it does accurately replicate the boredom of the music business as well. I mean, it could make it more boring and endless, sort of desert bus style. Lengthy driving to gigs could sort of add to the atmosphere. As a final point, I was amused when the band The Pound Shop Boys, the glorious Pound Shop Boys, upgraded to getting stadium gigs. We sold very few tickets. I managed to kill off one of them with all the stress, which meant that a subsequent sellout concert tour was a huge success. And that was a nice touch, I thought. The charts seem almost an afterthought. The whole game seems to be based around gigging and rehearsing, and the charts seem to be a little afterthought, which seems to fit in with the current music industry model rather than the one of 30 years ago, which is also unusual.
So there you go. There's somebody who played Rockstar Ate My Hamster back in the day and then went out and did it for real. Absolutely fantastic. And do check out Ricardo's current work with the Pound Shop Boys, especially the absolutely fantastic cover of the Family Ness. Remember that cartoon, The Family Ness? Absolutely fantastic Europop, is that the right word? Probably. Version of that in the style of the Pet Shop Boys. It's hilarious, and there's loads of other songs like that as well. There's a link in the description below. Check it out. It's absolutely fantastic. So how are my rock stars progressing? So this is what happens when publicity goes wrong. Rupert Beetle has died, and I'm one rock star down, which does have some advantages, I'll admit. Firstly, it means your wage bill goes down, and remember, you've still got all those songs in the bank. Your songs are safe, no one can take those from you, and you can still release those, but you've only got 3 people on tour, and it's a bit weird because although the attendance figures at the concerts sometimes seem to go down when someone dies, actually chart performance, I haven't been able to nail it down. It seems to be that sometimes actually your songs seem to perform better when someone dies. So, bit weird. Not quite sure what's going on, but goes back to what I said before about Rockstar Ate My Hamster being a bit random in what it does. Jananarama's still at number 4 there with I'm in Love with the Queen. It's been stuck at number 4 for a number of weeks. I'm now at number 2 in the album chart. If I get to number 1 there, that's a guaranteed gold disc. But, oh no, now I thought I'd need to go to number 1, but I've sold enough now that I've got my first gold disc in May. Oh, hang on. Right, someone's stolen my equipment, so we're going to buy some new equipment, but I'm cheating, so it doesn't matter. And to be honest, by now, money won't be an issue. Money is only an issue at the start of the game. And Reg Dwight is also a bit the dust there. Not Reg Dwight, sorry, Elvin Dwight. Better give my remaining rock stars some gifts. Give them some cars. Got 44 million quid in the bank. Doesn't matter really, does it? So That gives me, what, 2 pop stars left? How am I doing? Still at number 4. Going to hit number 1 in the album chart, aren't I? It's the Ricardo Autobahn Influence. Number 4. There we go. Don't Shoot a Chinny Man is number 1 in the album chart. And that's really good. I've never had a song that's stuck at number 4 for that long before. We've had 4-5 weeks at number 4 now. Back over to the ST. Only got 1 pop star remaining. It's the end of the year. I've only got 1 gold disc, and it's not going very well. And ChinnyVision Gold is at number 7, dropping down the charts there. Oh, Father Time has finally caught up with us. Oh, well, that's life, I guess. By the way, if you're wondering what the Amiga version is like, it looks the same as the ST version. Has, again, different music. So, Rockstar Ate My Hamster on the Spectrum, C64, CPC and ST. I used to play this game, and so did my mate, a lot when we got this on budget. Both of us, him on the C64, me on the CPC. And I thought playing through all the different versions would be a bit of a drag after I'd done one version, but no, I was trying to find different strategies for beating the game. During the early stages, money is a problem. You have to keep your finances under control. Once you get past April, May, it's not a problem. Even if you're spending £1 million per music video, then it becomes about trying to keep your singles in the charts and try and keep that success up. The elephant in the room is the Chris Seavey game, The Biz, which, as Ricardo said earlier on, is a lot more detailed and a lot more involving. But then again, The Biz was written by Chris Seavey, who was working in the music industry at the time. Rockstar is a more satirical view of the industry. As Ricardo said, it's grimy. That said, and despite the fact the game does seem to be random and does seem to be terribly unfair, it's still enormously entertaining. I haven't talked a lot about the difference between the versions because they all play identically. Especially if you're playing off an image today. If you're playing the Amstrad Spectrum Commodore version off tapes, then yes, you're going to have that faffing around selecting a Rockstar, pressing pause if you've got a Spectrum or an Amstrad CPC without a remote socket. All the versions here and the Amiga version not shown play identically. The only differences are graphics and sound. On the 8-bits, the C64 version has the best music. Goodness knows what's going on the Spectrum and Amstrad. The Amstrad is particularly tuneless at times, and the ST version probably has the best music of the lot. Other than that, they're identical. I still think the game's enormously entertaining today. Yes, it's dated. Yes, the touring bit is incredibly repetitive. But you know what? It raised a smile back in the late 80s when I had this on budget. And today, yeah, it raised a smile again.